When I typed in your name on AI, they say you're known for education. You're an educator,
Right.
education reform, civil rights activist, and when it comes to education, some people feel that you sometimes like it's not really necessary, or I don't have to go to school, or I don't have to, so I like the fact that you brought that up, that theoretically it's still important. It's still important to read a book.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
and it's also important to have the experience. So, coupling that together.
yeah, and so let's go back to AI. So AI is a tremendous tool, right? And we're only at the beginning of what it's going to do. But like I was having a conversation with someone who was trying to, because I'm working on this reading initiative, which I'm happy to explain.
Okay.
But they were saying, well, our kids don't need to know how to read because you got AI. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, right? Because I mean, AI, you still got to be able to read.
Yeah.
You got to be able to comprehend.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like I put my name in AI too, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's not correct. Or I was thinking about something I wanted to do, and so I put the prompts in the AI, and it came back. But then you still got to look at it.
Right.
You got to analyze it. You got to figure out, okay, what about this do I need to change? It doesn't. You can go back in there and say, well, do this better. And so you can keep using it depending upon which AI tool you're using, right? Because there's this one that if you were going to write a book, for example, it'll literally write the book for you, right? But even when you put the stuff in there, you got to go back in there and say, okay, but I wanted more on this scene, or I wanted this person. So even how you use those tools, it still comes back to your ability to read, to write, to think, to analyze, and to compute. And when you're reading is about, particularly with our young kids trying to learn how to read, it's about phonics, it's about phonemic awareness, it's about vocabulary, it's about spelling, but it's also about comprehension.
Yeah.
Because if you're reading something on AI and you don't comprehend it,
right.
What does that mean? And so every society has faced technological advancement, right? And every period of society's history, that technological advancement is much deeper than the previous. So we've never seen anything like AI. We don't know what's going to come after AI, right? But there's a thing called cultural lag. And what that is that you have technological change, but the society's ability to catch up to the technological change lags behind the technological change. What the problem that we have today is the technological advancements are so fast that it's hard for the culture to catch up, with the technological change, right? In the past, you didn't have the speed of technological change. And so even though it took time for the culture to catch up, you were more likely to be able to catch up because it might be years before you see another radical technological innovation. But in today's world, it's so rapid that it makes it more difficult for us to align as a culture with the technological change.
How do we address that in education?
You know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly think that what's facing educators today is so much more, complex, right? But like every technological advancement, like believe it or not, Crystal, back in the day when the radio was first invented, I remember reading this book. There were people who were saying we no longer need teachers because you got the radio. Then obviously when TV came, we no longer need teachers. So at every point in time, you've had a technological advancement, and the argument's been, well, we no longer need teachers. Well, and in each period of history, that proved not to be true. But what it does do is change how teachers have to function, right? And so I know that teachers must be grappling today with AI because, did this kid write this paper or did they just do it on AI? And then you can't say, well, you can't use AI because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So the struggle is to figure out how do we use AI in a way that advances what it is that we're trying to do educationally, but it doesn't skip certain steps that are still necessary, I think, in order for us to use that technology, to the fullest.
Right.
And so I can imagine what teachers are thinking about today, right? But even as I understand that reality, I'm sitting here and we're sitting here in a city where black children, young black children, have some of the lowest reading scores in the United States of America. And we're sitting here with one or two generations of teachers who have never been given the tools to teach our children how to read. And AI ain't gonna solve that problem, right? We're still gonna have to go back and get back into evidence-based instruction, right? Like because there's like 40 or 50 years of research on this is what you need to do in order to teach reading. And so even though you've got all of these levels of technological advancement, if we're dealing with 5-year-old kindergartners through 3rd grade or 4th grade or 5th grade or whatever it is, if we don't teach them how to read, they're not going to be able to take advantage of the advances in technology, right? So at least in my mind, those things still remain true.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense because even though we're using these tools, you still have to comprehend. You still have to know to type in what you need and how to, process it and comprehend it and put it together and things like that. That is so true.
Yeah, because AI can only
do so much.
So much. Right? It's what you put into the prompts, right? If you put garbage into the prompts, you're gonna get garbage, right? And so you still gotta understand how to
you still have to have some intellect.
Right? Yeah, you have to be thinking about it. Right?
So put it in. That is so true. That is so true. So when it started coming about, like did it blow you off your rocker? Or
when I first, the first time I heard about it. Yeah. But I'm gonna use something, and this is gonna be crazy, but I'll use an example. But the first time I heard NWA, that was really the first time I had heard gangster rap. Right? It was I'm trying to remember the name. It was like Coming from Compton or something, right?
Or like Straight Outta Compton.
Straight out of Compton. And I had no, so the first time I heard, I was like, what?
Yeah.
This is what and now look at and it's so what I'm saying is that when these things hit like that, you got a whole generation of people whose immediate response is they didn't get rid of that. Well, yeah, but they ain't gonna get rid of that, right? So you out there talking about they need to get rid of that. It doesn't. It's not gonna affect anything. So you gotta start figuring out. Okay, this is gonna be here. Like, and so now we gotta figure out what we're gonna do. Because I tell people all the time, because you can't teach kids that used to be there or kids you wish were there. You got to teach the kids who are actually there, right? Or you can't live in a world that used to be a world you wish. You got to live in a world that is, right?